And sometimes being a good parent means being quiet. I think that some of our children have to learn some things for themselves. Those are the best taught lessons, the ones that they teach themselves. The ones you teach them, they don't learn quite as much from it, but at the same time, you can't let them go off the road. So you tell them they shouldn't do something. And sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. But that's the challenge of being a parent. Parent's a full-time job. I had a small support system when I was growing up. I had a great brother who loved me unconditionally, and I had a mother who was very ambitious for me and loved me deeply. And so I had two very strong people who were encouraging. I didn't feel a lot of encouragement from anybody else, really. And at that point, I just decided that I was going to be different. And I think because my mother was so verbose and such a character, I thought that was a good direction to go in. And I see some of myself in my mother. And then, of course, I had my brother, who, I don't know why he liked me so much, but he did. And I had his encouragement. And so I had two very important people supporting me growing up. And in that, I would look at other families and I would think, wow, this is fabulous. I love the way how that's working out. I love how they get along. I do remember a particular family growing up. They were the Tiefenthalers. And I can't tell you how many Tiefenthalers there were, but there were a lot of them. And Mr. and Mrs. Tiefenthaler, they always drove the biggest station wagon there was to carry them all. And they lived in a large house. Mr. Tiefenthaler had a pretty good business, pretty good job. He worked for IBM. And I liked that, their kids got to do everything. And they got to do it well. And I thought, I'd love to be able to do that. I also had a neighbor named Frank Hancock. Frank was a teacher principal. Looking back on Frank, I really don't know very much about what he was as far as being an educator. But I knew what he was as far as being a communicator. And I liked the way he talked people through things. I wanted that for myself. And I wanted to have kids. Always wanted to be a father. I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to be a father. I want to be the father that you saw on television, that was the coach, was the driver, was the counselor, the one that helped kids with their homework, the one who cheered them on when they needed cheering on. I like that. For all the kids, I want them to believe that the center of the family really are not the children. The center of the family are the parents. The parents do for others, but it comes back to them. Strong families have an allegiance to the father and the mother. Well-functioning families have an allegiance to the father and the mother. There again, the father and the mother provide for everybody, but there needs to be that respect. It goes back to the father and the mother. When I was growing up, I noticed the allegiance that my mother had for her mother and her aunt and her sister. And it was after they had grown up, they were looking back at from where they came. And I thought, wow, that's really important because that keeps the family together. It keeps them working as a unit because the leadership is pretty well defined. That authority, that supposedly wise person. Sometimes parents aren't wise, but sometimes they are. And so I look at that, and I see that's an important part of the family. Yes, you have to do lots of things for your kids because they have to learn about the world and they have to find their place in that world. But the family to function, it's got to go back to the parents. When I am a teacher in the classroom, I am a nurturer. There's a character in the book called The Giver. It's the father of the central character in the story. And his job is nurturer. And what he does is not only does he have his own family, but it's his responsibility to nurture other young children. And I see that in myself. I go into the class and I'm thinking long term about where my students will be 10, 15, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, after I'm gone. And the decisions that I make as a teacher are to prepare them for their life after they've left me. I teach them more than the Common Core, what we used to call reading, writing, and arithmetic. Teach them how to get along with one another. Teach them how to anticipate. I teach them how to problem solve. How to teach them to avoid situations. And I think it's really important to be a parent as well as a teacher. When I started teaching, when I told, her name was Barbara Andrew, and she was a mentor to me. I told Barbara that we were going to have our first child, and she said, "You will immediately be a better teacher." And my first thought was, because I'm generating more students, I'll be a better teacher because I'll be motivated to be a better teacher for my child and everybody else's. Well, it started with that, but it's more than that. You find yourself thinking of those children more as someone to give information to, give them skills. It's a patriotic and religious theme. But yes, I think it's important to think of yourself as being a parent while you're a teacher. I think the weak teachers are the ones who just concentrate on the subject matter and forget about the importance of being that nurturer. Walter turned out to be very, he's articulate, he's industrious, he's intelligent, he's hardworking. He's ambitious. The word Walter means stalwart warrior, and I think that pretty well describes Walter. Everything that he does, he attacks, and he does it with zest, whether it's athletics or business or fantasy football. In his relationships, he gets very involved in it. And I'm very pleased with the fact that he has grabbed a hold of what's going on in the world, and he's a part of it. He's very mainstream. He talks about important issues that I think are important, that are worldly, whether it's political or economic, social. He's got good opinions, and I like that. I like that he thinks things through. He thinks of things in a deeper sense, and that's so important that he knows that there's more than just face value. Walter's done a very good job of dealing with people. His job does not allow him to be too empathetic, sympathetic, or pathetic with people that he works with. He's got, because he's in charge of producing, he's got to be demanding of his workers that they produce. And he is the right man for that job. I am very pleased with how Walter has taken the course of his life. He's married to a young lady, Stacy, whom we love, and she balances him out so well. I think they are so well yoked because she's also a very competitive person and a very compassionate person. And so she will encourage Walter when he stumbles, and she will support him when he falls. Emily is my feelings person. She's my very sensitive kind of gal, extremely competitive and very hardworking. The thing that I think sets Emily apart from so many other people is when she faces an obstacle, she does not allow the obstacle to stare her down. Although sometimes she's intimidated by it, Emily will stand up to a situation. She had a hard time growing up. She was short. She was cute, which are disadvantages. She was sweet. which can be a disadvantage. She had to learn to be a learner, but she just never gave up. Athletics didn't come as quickly to her as they did to Walter, but she worked at it. And she's my success. Emily didn't make a team, and she tried out for all of them when she was in middle school. Didn't make the team. By the time she got through high school, she was all conference in tennis, and she got accepted at the college of her choice from where she graduated. She's made things happen for herself. Well, Bibi is absolutely the perfect person for me to be with. Bibi knows me better than anybody in the world, and if you know me, you know that I am wide open, and I'm capable of getting wider. And Bibi does a great job of grounding me and keeping me balanced. Sometimes, as I said, when I waver off the road, she directs me back to the center. I get excited about things. I get disappointed about things. I think she's a really good monitor for me. Great mother, terrific wife, good friend. And she doesn't know what planet I really came from, but she loves me anyway. After Bibi and I were married, she worked for an orthodontist. Actually, she worked for the orthodontist before we got married in Lenore. And Kathleen's house was 2 blocks up from the orthodontist. So lunch was a regular thing. And Bibi and Mom would get together and have lunch, or Bibi would come up to the house and do some things to help Mom out in the house during that time. So they got to be pretty good friends. Then when Mom fell and broke her hip, it was Bibi who made the decision that Mom was going to come and live with us. And I was floored at her generosity. Because my mother could be difficult. And Bibi was going to do the right thing whether it was difficult or not. And that was that we were going to take my mother in, and she was going to become the child or the person that we were centered on taking care of in our home. So we took her out of Lenore, had a big departure. We made some accommodations in the home that we were living in at the time. John Dahl, one of our friends forever, came and helped us put a stairwell up so that she could enter the house easily. Bibi painted a room in the front of the house to accommodate Kathleen. I think she had to prime it, and then 4 coats of deep red paint, moving her furniture in. It was really a pretty good situation for Kathleen. It really was. And Bibi did that.